Hey guys, as you know, a big patch just landed and it brought with it a bunch of new legendary heroes, so I want to go over them now just to kind of introduce them to you guys as well as for my own learning because I have not looked at them all. And we'll start things off by looking at Vierna, the new Curse Mage AoE damage dealer. So Vierna seems to be quite an interesting mage, mainly because she has, now that we can see her modifiers, a very powerful ultimate. So when skilled up to max, Reaper's Grasp will do 900% AoE damage to enemies within range, and after a short delay, enemies with less than 35% health will be instantly executed if they are not elites or bosses. Again, assuming this is at max skill. That is quite powerful. That's a huge multiplier on AoE damage, and that is nice to be able to just cull enemies that are below a certain health threshold. This will be especially potent in Gear Raid 1, obviously, but throughout a whole bunch of content. As the developers noted, the reasoning behind this character is that a lot of mages have very good consistent damage options such as Zealous and Morrigan, but they don't have burst. So Vierna really adds burst to the utility of mages. It gives them the ability to just completely delete units below a certain threshold. It's very powerful as far as ultimates go, so I think she has a lot of potential. You can see that her basic attack also applies Mortal Kiss. So it deals AoE damage equal to 50% of her attack to the bearer, the person she's hit, as well as the surrounding allies of the bearer, so that's quite powerful. She extracts souls of the victim she kills, and she can collect up to 6 souls. Each soul increases her attack by 2%, which increases up to 3%, so 3 times 6 is 18, that's not bad at all, increase her attack by 18%. Oh wait, no, that's wrong. Soul extraction is a passive. She can extract the souls of the victim, so I'm guessing units she kills, 6 2 plus another 6, so up to 12 stacks, which can go up to 3% each, so 3 times 12 pretty good. 36% increased attack, that's a very notable amount. And when there are at least 2 enemies within range of basic attack, she can consume 1 soul to add +1 to target of basic attack. I'm guessing that's only one time and doesn't keep stacking up. I don't know. It's interesting. Skeletal shield, apply a bone shield to ally with the lowest HP percentage in range. Killing enemy reduces the skill's cooldown by 2 seconds down to 12 seconds. And it inflicts damage in area. It's not awful, it's not bad. It's just, again, I'm hesitant about wasting a passive on a mage on a defensive thing. It adds some damage, which is nice. Her main pull is obviously going to be her Reaper's Grasp. Interesting that her passive says it can't be affected by attack speed. The Mortal Kiss as well seems quite interesting, having some AoE damage around people you hit. And the soul extraction giving you up to 36% attack is obviously quite good, and allowing you to attack multiple targets with your basic attack. She seems solid. I think it's all in her ultimate really. The bonus damage is nice as well, but the ultimate with the execute is really what makes her valuable. As for her awakenings, the first one applying magic reduction on Mortal Kiss is very strong. Second one is attack, that's great, sure. Third one, when Reaper's Grasp kills an enemy with Mortal Kiss, deal 120% to all other enemies around it. Okay, so if they have the debuff applied to them from your auto attack and then you kill them with your ultimate, they deal like an explosion of damage around them. That seems really good to me, especially in conjunction with her passive where she can hit multiple units at the same time with her basic attack. She'll be applying Mortal Kiss. I think she seems very strong. I do think she seems strong. Minus cost is nice. Mortal Kiss, Bone Shield does double damage, so it becomes what? Okay, yeah, we have to look at the modifiers. That seems okay. Number 5 doesn't seem as interesting to me. Number 3 seems very good. Awaken 3 seems good, so you'll be happy if you got that. There are 3 others that we can talk about quickly. I'll show them and then we'll get on to Arrogance. Just be interesting to see them a little bit because I haven't had a chance to look at them that much yet and I'm quite curious to see. Cerberus. Wow, that is quite a character. Look at the art on that. That is amazing. He is a fighter that is magic damage, basic attack, pure death. Wait, does he scale on defense? Okay, so I'm recording this again at the end of the video. I've cut back on myself in editing to go over this again because the first time I went over it I was just confused and I have a better idea of how he works now and he sounds hilarious to me. So his talent, right? Every 14 seconds he just loses 20% of his max HP. He can't be healed or revived by allies, so he's just going to kill himself fairly quickly, right? However, when this happens, he spawns Water of Decay on the location of the highest HP enemy for 6 seconds, dealing 30% AoE damage, which isn't the craziest amount. However, every time he takes damage, it reduces the cooldown by 2 seconds. So it will go... The way it reads to me, right, is if you dump him in the middle of a bunch of AoE enemies, one, when he gets spawned, he immediately dumps a permanent AoE on the floor. So he immediately does 200% damage, and then he creates Water of Decay around him on the floor, that does 40% damage per second permanently. And then second to that, whenever the enemies hit him, it reduces his talent's cooldown, right? So what, it takes 7 hits, now it has no cooldown? Is that correct? Does he just suddenly just wipe his health out and die? But he just drops these things everywhere? That's how it reads to me. If that's the case, that's kind of nuts and not super useful, but it's very funny. So that's weird. So that's the first 2 abilities. The third one, when he dies, he then leaves a ground area dealing 100% AoE per second for 12 seconds, increasing in duration up to 20 seconds and in damage up to 140%. So it's a lot of damage over a fairly long time when he dies, but again, that's when he dies. He can't be revived, can't be healed, he's gonna die pretty quick. First time you deploy him, he'll cost less by 6, down to up to 9, which reduces his deployment cost to 8. So I mean, when he's a cost of 8 and you place him and he just like dies on the spot and then just drops death water everywhere, it's funny as hell, and it might be useful, but at this point I don't really care how useful it is, it just sounds really funny. And he also reduces the cost of placing mages after he dies. Don't really know why that inspires them, but sure. So yeah, you place him, he kills himself, refuses to elaborate and leaves. I love the developers for putting him in the game, but unless I misunderstand, I don't understand why. It's max HP, he just dies, he just kills himself in 5 instances, and it says it reduces the cooldown whenever he takes damage. So surely he just suicides within a minute, and if you place him in the middle of enemies, he's just going to die like within seconds. But in doing so, he'll just tsunami everyone with deathly AoE, which it just sounds so funny to me. It's a shame his revival time is long. If you have him with like an awakened Volker and she reduces his respawn time, there could be some interesting stuff going on there, because every time you place him he leaves a permanent effect, right? It just seems so weird, but I love it. Anyway, Awakening, the first one, within 10 seconds all ground effects will slow. That's cool. We don't know how much the slow effect is. I'm assuming it's 50% like most slow effects, so that's interesting. 5% attack, pretty standard. When his HP is less than 50%, the damage frequency of ground effects doubles. That's strong. That's really strong. That's really strong, because it's every second for 12 seconds, going up to every half a second for 12 seconds. It's now just a zone of death, right? So and I could be misunderstanding it. The wording is a bit shaky in a lot of these things, and it's quite easy to get different interpretations. But it sounds like he kind of just absolutely annihilates everything after killing himself, which is really fun. But yeah, I would say Awakening 1 seems good. Awakening 2 is fine. Awakening 3 seems very good. Awakening 4, crit rate, I guess. Yeah, sure, that's not bad. Awakening 5 reduces the cooldown of his talent, so he can kill himself faster. However, it reduces the HP consumption of his talent by 5%, which is quite big. Reducing it to 15 would help quite a bit. That maybe gives you another tick before you kill yourself. Yeah, I am fascinated by this guy. I think his Awakenings are decent. Pretty much all of them seem good. The Awakening 5 doesn't seem crazy. The first 3 seem good. Well, number 1 and number 3 seem pretty good. He seems really fun. He does not seem particularly useful, but he seems fun. He seems weird, and I love that. So I would like to pull Cerberus. He is a skull collector. They are all his skulls from the sound of how his skills work. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. If you pull him, let me know what you think. Let me know how he actually works, because I'm sure I'm misunderstanding some of it. Surely, but we'll see. Anyway, we'll move on. Let's have a look at Azhor. You can get him from the fusion event. He is actually Nightmare. I didn't think he was Nightmare for some reason. I thought he was the Infernal Blast, but here we have him. So you can get him in the summon event. The event, and it's going to last 20 days. I think it's going to be very hard to summon him if you're not making sure that you get at least all of the contribution rewards. I'm not too sure, but maybe you have to win some of the events as well, which would be very tough if you're not a whale. So good luck. But maybe it's not that bad. It is 20 days long, so it might be a lot better than it seems. It might be a lot easier than it seems. So what does he do? Let's have a look. Control and shield. Okay, so he's tanky and he's CCs. That's kind of the best you can get from a defender usually. His talent is when the Iron Hammer is in a heated state. Attacks have a 30% chance of stunning. The stun chance isn't the highest. The stun duration isn't the highest, and it's only in a certain state. And it sounds like it would be single target. I don't really rate that so far. 3 block, 18 cost is all pretty typical, so nothing interesting there. Standard revival time as well. Basic attack. Attacks and deals damage to one enemy. Each attack builds up energy for the hammer. After 10 strikes, the hammer enters the heated state. Okay, I don't know what heated state means, guys. Is it just the talent? Is it just... So the heated state appears to just be this talent here, which means that your attacks have a 30% chance. Is this a permanent state? I think we assume that this is a permanent state. After 10 strikes, his hammer permanently has a 30% chance to stun for a second. So that's not bad. I'm kind of curious, if you just stuck attack speed on this guy, but 30% isn't the highest. Yeah, it's fine. It's not something you can build around. Okay, Tempering Strike. Each strike causes 120% damage to up to 5 enemies in front of the attacker when the skill is activated. When the skill ends, removes the hammer's heated state. Okay, why? Increases damage up to 20% extra, so it goes up to 140%. I'm not too sold on this. It doesn't seem that great to me, but I don't know. It's a defender. It's really hard for defenders to shine. Every attack increases the caster's defense by 1% up to 10 times. You can increase that by another percent, so it would go up to 20% defense increase. When in heated state, defense is increased by another 10% and attack is increased by 10%. This can go up again by 15% on each one, so 25 and 25% increase. I mean, yeah, it seems okay. It's hard to tell. He has a lot of modifiers and things that stack with each other, so Master Craftsman would impact Tempering Strikes, which would obviously impact the basic attack. Fortifying Sparks. When Tempering Strikes is active, every strike will provide one random ally within 3 tiles of range and effect, based on the current status of the hammer. Normal state, allies receive a shield equal to 100% of the caster's defense for 10 seconds. Heated state triggers the normal state effect, then also increases attack. This changes a lot. This actually makes him way better all of a sudden. This means that he can be applying, with skill ups, he can be applying a shield equal to 120% of his defense for 10 seconds every time he swings his hammer during Tempering Strikes. And Tempering Strikes lasts for 15 seconds, so that is quite a while. And he'll be applying buffs. The buffs will either be the shield, or they'll be the shield plus a 20% attack bonus for 10 seconds. That seems quite good to me. I definitely think that makes him a lot more viable. Applying attack buffs is what you want out of a defender, because he's going to be tanky enough by himself. So being able to boost your fighters or your marksman or your mage is very nice, and making them more survivable as well. So that's cool. Fortifying Spark seems to be where his real value comes in. Let's have a look at his Awakening. So the first one, when attacking, he has 10% chance to cast Fortifying... Okay, this seems good to me. Just blanket putting the Fortifying Sparks on these effects is really good, I think. Or maybe it's just enhancing Fortifying Sparks, adding another 10%, or is it looks to me like it's adding the chance to his basic physical attack, which if that's the case, that's very good. Awakening to his health, sure. Extends the effect of Tempering Strike by 1 second. I mean, what's that, 15 seconds to 16 seconds? That's not really that important. Total damage reduction 8%. Again, he's probably not going to die if you build him. 6, the heated state does not terminate him along with the ultimate skill, so he's permanently in the heated state, which means his Tempering Strikes is permanently giving, whenever he swings his mace during his ult, he'll be permanently proccing sparks and giving people shields and attack bonuses. So the 5th one is quite strong. He's just always in a heated state, so that's good. And he will obviously keep his 30% chance to stun. I would say the 3rd Awakening doesn't seem that great. The 1st Awakening seems decent. It might be really good, or it might just be okay, depending on how that works. And the 5th one seems really good to me, or at least pretty good. But nothing crazy, but it seems good. So that is Azhor. He seems interesting. Hopefully we can fuse him without too much pain, and it's not just eaten up by whales dominating the events, but we'll see how that goes. So we had 1 from the Nightmare Council. We had 2 in the Cursed Cult. The Infernal Blast. Okay, this is Setram. Now, I had a peek at this guy's skills, not fully read it, but a peek, and he sounds super cool. And also, look at the dude, he looks awesome. He's like a fortress by himself, with cannons and everything. What is this? Yeah, I like this guy, he looks great. And he's a marksman, I really would like. And he has very nice attack range here, as you can see, and there's probably upgrades as well, so he'll have very good range. So, talent, attacks have a 20% chance to launch fists to smash the target, dealing 140% damage and stun the target for half a second. The fewer the targets in range, the higher the damage, for up to 20% extra damage. No idea how that scales, but I guess if there's one person in range, it's 20% extra damage versus less if there's more. Maybe 5% per person, we have no idea. First attack, attacks one enemy, makes sense. Cost is 20, block is 1, because yeah, he's a marksman. Arrival time is 60, pretty standard. Fairly high cost for a marksman, but nothing crazy. Fortress Stance, switches to Fortress Stance, increases attack range for 15 seconds. I want to know how much, because that could be insane. During the skill, constantly bombard targets with continuous attacks that deal 25% damage and gradually increases attack speed, entering overloaded when reaching the attack speed limit. Self-repair after 10 seconds. Self-repair time -2 seconds. So the overloaded state overconsumes the energy, increases the damage by 50%, then enters a worn out state for a while. Okay, that's what I thought self-repair might mean. So this self-repair time minus 2 seconds. So I think he can't do anything for 10 seconds. And that sounds awful, but there's actually a lot of downtime when you're fighting between waves. My concern is, well, I'll get to it. I'll talk about this afterwards. We'll come back to this because I know something else. Devastation increases all damage by 10%, deal 30% extra damage to targets with shield. Now the damage increase can be increased by 5%, so it increases all damage by 15%, and then the extra shield damage will get increased by another 20%, so 50% bonus damage to shields. That's very good. And then the last one, Annihilation, gains buffs when attacking one target continuously, increasing attack crit rate, crit damage by 1% and 2% respectively, each for 4 seconds. It can stack up to 15 times. So I'm assuming whenever he hits something, he gains that for 4 seconds, and every hit stacks it up to 15 times. So long as he keeps shooting the same target, he'll probably sit on max stacks. The duration can increase to 5 seconds. The stacks can increase by 7, which is an interesting number. He ends up with 22 stacks, so 22% crit rate is pretty good. 44% crit damage. That seems very good to me. It makes him a lot easier to build if you don't have to worry about crit rate. You can just go all in on attack speed, crit damage, attack. Probably even maybe consider getting some rage efficiency, because this seems to be quite potent. And yeah, that seems great. Now the thing I wanted to mention about why I'm a bit concerned about the overloaded state and the self-repair time, I think that's going to be fine for a lot of gear raid, for a lot of campaign, but the main thing that he seems built for, if you read Devastation, if you read Annihilation, is Guild Boss. Setram seems to be built to just annihilate the dragon. You're focusing a single enemy. The dragon has shields. He gains bonus damage against shields, up to 50%, so he'd be great at breaking the dragon's shield. So you pop his fortress state, 15 seconds, should be enough. Maybe it lines up. Maybe it just about lines up. It gives you enough time to pop the shield and do damage to its weakened state afterwards. So it might be okay, actually. It might be perfectly lined up for Guild Boss. So I do think they have built him with that in mind. I don't think the self-repair time will matter that much. There's a lot of downtime. Increased attack range, having the ability to scale up in damage. He just seems to be a pure nuker. Alright, let's have a look at his awakening. Fortress starts. When entering the fortress starts, grant buff to allies with the highest current attack range. Deal 30% more damage to enemy units with shields for 15 seconds. Wow, this guy is built for Dragon. He is just built for Guild Boss. If you get him, go for his Awakened 1. That is super good. It's going to be... People were struggling to kill Guild Boss for Nightmare 4. Just watch the rankings in the coming days. He is going to be appearing in the rankings. Awakened 1 looks very good for that. Awakened 3 increases damage for each tile between the target and the hero. I mean, what's he going to be at? Like 3 tiles between them? I mean, like 9% damage? It's not bad, right? You wouldn't want to place him further than that just because he can hit with his ult, because most of the time you won't be in that range. For the dragon, I think that would be okay, but the dragon's quite large, so I don't know where they count that. 8% penetration is good. Duration of overloaded 5 seconds. That's pretty good. Yeah, all over. Setram seems good. He seems like he is built just to completely destroy the Guild Boss, so an amazing hero, no doubt, for that. Probably one of the best heroes in the game. Just from reading it, I don't know, it's speculation, but I mean, if you read that and think otherwise, then I don't know. That looks like he is built just to kill dragons. Must be very good for that content. And then now, I believe the last one, here we go. Venoma. Pretty cool design. Got some kind of Medusa thing going on. It's another mage, fairly short cast range, or normal cast range. Basic attacks, 20% chance to apply curse. Curse means they're unable to perform basic attacks. That's quite good. 1 block as normal. It's a wall unit. 19 cost is fine for a mage. Kind of expected. 60 revival is normal. Control focus unit. Curse makes sense. Control, you can definitely see that. After a short channeling, deals 480% AoE damage to enemies in the front area, inflicting hex. Receives 20% magic damage from the caster per second, so this just makes you take more damage over time. The AoE is fairly high. This seems weaker than Vierna to me. It doesn't have the eliminate. It has a duration, so maybe this is a pulsing effect. The AoE damage goes higher, the rage cap goes down. Still, it seems like she'll cast this quite rapidly, and it will be decent AoE damage. When inflicting hex, also slow by 50% for 2 seconds, which can be increased up to 4 seconds, so that seems good. Should just be able to slow things down and deal consistent AoE damage, and then maybe make them unable to attack. Slowing them down and making them unable to attack is good against airborne units, I guess. It doesn't really work that well against melee units. Either they're hitting you or they're not. so slowing them, it doesn't really change that much. And finally, her auto, 7-second cooldown. For every 7 attacks, the next attack inflicts 90% damage to the enemy and inflicts hex. This attack bounces 2 additional enemies. That's pretty good. And it can go down to 5 attacks, and it will inflict 110% damage instead of 90%. So she basically just applies hex to people. She slows everyone like crazy, and she can make them unable to attack. She seems kind of like a legendary version of Setram without the hard freeze. I kind of like the hard freeze personally. 50% slow is very good, and this will be just like constant slow, especially with the bouncing going on, with this applying hex. Everything's going to be slowed all the time, but her range isn't amazing. It's not like she's got crazy range to go along with this. I don't know, maybe I'm underestimating her, but on the faces of it, I don't really rate this kit that much. Let's have a look at her awakening. Enemies affected afflict 50% damage upon death. That seems worse than, is it Mortal Kiss seems to have some things like that. On Vierna, 5% attack. Curse and Gaze also applies curse to enemies. Yeah, that would be pretty good. Bouncing to CC, so Awaken Free seems quite good, but I don't know how necessary. Rage regen is good. Basic attacks will hit an extra target. That's good. Makes her like a multi-shot. She hits 2 targets at a time. They will be getting the curse effect on them. She seems decent. She seems to be focused on debuffing enemies. The damage multipliers don't seem high enough that she would be like super great in Gear Raid 1. Undoubtedly she'll be better than most epic heroes, but not a standout amongst the legendaries. You wouldn't want to bring her to Guild Boss. Modifiers aren't high enough and her debuffs don't really matter. She's probably good in campaign. Let me know what you think. And of course, there is Arrogance. Now, I've been playing with him a lot, so I have a lot of thoughts on him. This attack range does go increase by 1, I believe, once he ranks up. So his passive, attacks with the bow inflict burning. Burning does 20% magic damage per second, 7-second duration, which is quite long. Attacks with his sword, so when he's in melee range using normal stance, 30% chance to increase his attack speed by 40, stacking up to 3 times for 10 seconds, so 120 for 10 seconds. He costs 18, which is pretty okay for a fighter. 2 block as normal, 60 revive as normal. Basic attack attacks 1 enemy within 1 tile with the swords, using the magic bow for a single target attack in any other cases, so if they're further away or if they're not right in front of him. And attacks with his magic bow can hit airborne units. His ultimate Berserker stance inflicts 260% damage, increases basic attack range. Use the blade instead when attacking enemies far away. The blade inflicts AoE damage to enemies around the main target, equal to 20% of that to the main target, along with an additional burning to all enemies' damage. So more burning damage. Burning damage is pretty good. It actually is quite high. It's definitely notable. And you can see the damage increases by 100% and the percentage AoE increases by 10%. So these will kind of scale off of each other and make the AoE deal even more damage. This lasts 20 seconds as well, which is quite long. He has a passive for every 1 enemy he kills in Berserker stance, which is part of his ultimate. I really wish they would just call them the same things. They have so many things which are named, but then it's like, so the ult's called Hellfire, but using Hellfire puts you in Berserker stance. Just call it Berserker stance or Hellfire stance or something. Anyway, every 1 enemy killed while in Berserker stance receive 1 stack of attack speed talent bonus, so 1 stack of this talent here. And when Berserker stance ends, inflict 80% AoE damage up to 10 enemies around. AoE damage, that's very high. And then last, he has a passive. When attacking with the bow or the blade, the hero has a 15% chance to attack 2 targets at the same time. When attacking with the blade, he has a 15% chance to land a 2-hit combo. Now it says the blade in both of them. Maybe one refers to when he's in Berserker stance, I'm not too sure. I actually maxed this skill. You do notice him double hitting a lot, it's very potent. As for his awakenings, the first one gives him 5% basic attack regen. He heals back 5% of his health when he makes basic attacks. Very good during Berserker stance only, but very good. Crit damage 15% is nice. He is basically a raw damage dealer, so you want this kind of awakening feat. 15% extra damage to targets with burning. This is really good for him because he just does a lot of burning. He applies it on his ranged attacks, he applies it during his ult. Rage by attacks +2. His rage ult is an automatically activated passive, is auto, so it will just keep going, so you want to have something to help refresh it quick, so that's good. And 5, when entering Berserker stance, immediately receives the maximum attack speed. This is from his talent, from the talent bonus. First 5 attacks deal 100% extra damage. That is also pretty good. So in terms of awakenings, I would say they are good for him. The first one is really nice, it gives him some sustain, which is always welcome. The second one gives him crit damage, which is good. Third one applies extra damage on burning, which will happen quite a lot if you're fighting enemies at range. This won't be as relevant on Guild Boss, which I use him for quite a bit. And the final one, the Hellfire one, seems to be pretty good as well. The 5 first attacks doing loads of damage is very valuable. There's a lot of bonus damage coming out. So yeah, he is a good unit. I'll cover him more in a separate, more in-depth video. But what I will say for now he is actually very dynamic. You can use him in a lot of content. He is great for just straight up mauling stuff in close combat. In Guild Boss, he has a very good showing. I have used him in campaign to help deal with aerial levels. I have used him to deal with some AoE scenarios. He can kind of fit a role in almost every team. He's one of those units you'll find yourself just putting everywhere. So great unit so far. And that does it for the legendaries. Now I'll be making a video very soon going over the detail on Arrogance, but for now we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much and take care. Bye bye.